Long before people knew how to measure time, before they learned to count years or carve memories into stone, there was a tribe living at the edge of a vast plain where the wind never truly rested, and the mountains stood like silent witnesses to everything that had ever happened. They believed the world itself was alive, that the ground listened when you walked on it, that the sky leaned closer when you whispered secrets, and above all, they believed that fire was not just fire. To them, fire was breath. Fire was blood. Fire was the last remaining heartbeat of something far older than gods, something that had fallen into the world when the world was still soft and unfinished. They called it Asha, and they said Asha was not born from wood or spark, but from a wound in the sky itself, a tear that bled light and heat into the darkness below. The elders taught that the fire did not belong to the tribe. The tribe belonged to the fire. It was a bargain made so long ago that no one remembered the exact words anymore, only the consequence. The fire must never go out. Not for a moment. Not for a breath. Because if it did, the thing bound inside it would remember what it was before it was trapped, and the world would remember why it once feared the night. So they chose one person, always one, never two, to stay with the flame for life. This person would not travel, would not build a family, would not dream of elsewhere. From the day of choosing to the day of death, their only purpose was to watch the fire, feed it, listen to it, and never, ever abandon it. They called this person the firekeeper, and in their language, the word meant both guardian and prisoner. For generations, the choosing happened quietly. The firekeepers aged, their backs bent, their hair turned to ash and silver, and when they died, another took their place before the fire could feel alone. But then came Kyle. Kyle was different, not because he was stronger or wiser, but because he still looked beyond the horizon when he thought no one was watching. He was young, restless in the way young men are when the world still feels wide and unfinished, when paths seem endless and every road feels like it might lead to something more. On the night of the choosing, the fire burned higher than it ever had before, twisting and snapping as if impatient, as if it had already made its decision. The elder woman stepped forward, her voice thin but unshaking, and when she spoke Kale's name, the fire flared so suddenly that people stepped back in fear. Kale felt the heat press into his chest, into his lungs, like the fire was inhaling him, memorizing the shape of his breath. There were no goodbyes, no tears allowed, only ash pressed to his forehead, and the understanding that his life, as he had imagined it, had ended in that instant. The first nights were the worst. Alone with the fire, Kyle realized how loud silence could be. The flames moved differently when no one else was near, slower, heavier, as if they were watching him back. He learned its moods the way one learns another person's temper, how it leaned toward him when storms gathered far away, how it dulled when lies were spoken nearby, how it burned brightest when Kyle felt doubt creeping into his thoughts. Days blurred into months, months into years, and slowly the idea of leaving faded into something distant and unreal, like a dream remembered after waking. Until the night the fire went quiet. No crackle, no movement, just a steady, blinding glow that hurt to look at. And then, without sound, without heat changing, a voice formed in Kale's mind, ancient and patient, asking him the one thing no elder had ever asked. "You are afraid, aren't you?" Kyle did not ask who was speaking. He knew. He answered honestly, because something inside him understood that lies carried weight here. The fire seemed almost pleased. It told him fear meant he was still human. And then it did something no fire had ever done before. It told him the truth. The fire was not a blessing. It was a cage. Long ago, something had fallen from beyond the sky. Something that burned because it could not survive the cold emptiness it came from. The gods, or whatever watched the world back then, had trapped it, bound it into flame, and anchored it to the earth. The tribe was not chosen to worship it. They were chosen to maintain the lock. If the fire died, even for a moment, the thing inside would be free, and the world would feel again the terror it had buried under centuries of warmth and light. Kyle understood then why the firekeeper was never allowed to leave. Not because the fire needed company, but because it needed resistance. From that night on, the fire tested him. It showed him visions of roads leading away, of children with his eyes and laughter he would never hear, of a life where his name meant more than duty. Each vision was a question, and every time Kale chose to stay, the fire burned a little steadier, a little quieter. Years passed. The tribe prospered. Children played near the flame, unaware that the boundary between safety and annihilation was thinner than a breath. Then came the winter that would not end. The fire weakened, no matter how much wood Kyle fed it, shrinking as if something inside was pulling away. The voice returned, strained now, and told him it was breaking. There was only one way to reinforce the prison. Not with wood, not with ritual. With him. With his will, his fear, his unfulfilled life, all the weight of what he had never been allowed to become. At dawn, the elders found Kale standing perfectly still, eyes open, breath barely moving. The fire burned brighter than it ever had before, pure and unwavering. Kale never moved again. They buried him beside the flame, and from that day on, the fire never spoke. But it never faded either. New firekeepers came and went, none of them hearing a voice, none of them knowing the full truth. Yet sometimes, on quiet nights, when the fire leans just slightly toward the watcher, they feel it, a presence, a tension, as if someone is still standing there, holding the door shut from the inside. Because the first firekeeper never truly left. He became the flame. And as long as the fire burns, someone is still watching, still afraid, still human.